Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and we got a midday update. It's just, there's a ton of stuff going on with the news. There's some hot goss I want to talk about. Some of it's quite serious. It's not all that serious, though, so I figure why not do a bonus show? We're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to record this so that I can upload it easily and relatively quickly. So bear with me. Actually, you know what? Why don't I tell you what we're going to talk about? Sam Seder broke Steven Crowder. And we're just going to enjoy the timeline of events as I sees them. The question, which is a non-serious question, it's purely for enjoying ourselves in an immature way. Did Sam Seder cause Steven Crowder's divorce? Maybe. Maybe. Then also, of course, there's the debt ceiling being talked about right now in the House. And more about why Tucker Carlson might have been fired. He's a bad guy, so his bad fortune is fodder for our amusement. All right, let's get into this with some proper recording. Bop, as who's that fella? The 90s comedian. Miller would say. All right, we're going to record this thing. Well, today is the day that the House will be voting on their proposal for what they will do to raise the debt ceiling. Let's have a look at who we're talking about here. For a little context, Kevin McCarthy will go down in history. Here we go. As the weakest Speaker of the House we've ever had, at least up until this point. He had to give away so much of his power as Speaker in order to get the votes from MAGA that he is, in fact, really just a MAGA puppet these days. Well, what's the result here? What does that mean practically? Because we've been talking about that since vote number, 5, 6? Well, let's have a look at this New York Times article. Actually, no. Let's not the Badger Project either. Where do I want to go? So look at the CNN article. This is by Melanie Zanona, Kristen Wilson, Lauren Fox, Manu Raju, and Haley Talbot. All reporting for CNN. House Republicans are rallying around their proposal to raise the nation's borrowing limit and slash federal spending after leadership made a flurry of last-minute changes designed to win over key GOP holdouts. You know who those are. A major reversal after leadership insisted they would not alter the bill text. Following a closed-door conference meeting on Wednesday morning, where Speaker Kevin McCarthy walked members through some of the 11th hour changes, a number of conservatives and members representing ethanol-producing states who had initially signaled opposition began to fall in line. Okay, so what is that talking about? Well, we were discussing yesterday a Beau of the Fifth Column video that basically explained these Republicans truly do not know how government functions. And they literally needed it explained to them that a lot of the stuff that was in that bill was just in there to give them political cover and didn't actually have any meaning. It was meant to trick their voters into thinking they were making huge cuts, but it wouldn't actually cut the things that it said it would. Why? Because it put the onus on future Congresses to keep those cuts alive, so to speak. Well, there was objection to them. from GOP that MAGA folks, was my understanding, that just didn't understand it. So now they've been informed. Okay, GOP leaders are now expressing confidence they're on track to pass the bill later Wednesday. Even as a small handful of members are still threatening to vote against it, McCarthy can only afford to lose 4 votes. In an optimistic sign, GOP leaders appeared to have flipped one no vote to supporting the legislation, with Representative, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, who had said as early as Wednesday morning that she opposed the measure. I feel heard by the speaker and ... I will support the debt ceiling vote today because he listened to my concern, Mace told reporters after meeting with McCarthy. Passing the measure, which is dead on arrival in the Democratic-led Senate, is primarily aimed at boosting McCarthy's negotiating stance with Democrats and was a key part of GOP leadership's pitch to skeptical members. If McCarthy can unite his conference and force a bill through the chamber, it would be a symbolic win for GOP leadership. The country approaches its default deadline as soon as this summer. So look, the broad overview is McCarthy had to get a proposal out there. He's still, to my knowledge, as of 5:22 Eastern, still hadn't done it. Let's have a look at the New York Times live updates. House press presses ahead on debt limit bill, courting a showdown. House Republicans are grasping for the votes to pass a bill aimed at capping government spending and rolling back President Biden's agenda in return for a 1-year increase in the country's debt limit. Let's have a look at where the votes are currently at. This is a motion to recommit. Interesting. Never mind. The House, let's see if I can get an update. From 7 minutes ago, House members are scattered all around. This is from Carl Hulse from the New York Times. House members are scattered all around the Capitol and office buildings, and it will take some time for them to all show up at the House chamber and vote. Not to mention, voting has gotten much slower in both House and Senate since COVID. All right, fair enough. Representative Nancy Mace, let's see. Nah. I was looking to see if they had any updates on what she got. They don't actually say it. 17 minutes ago. Debate is at an end. Now comes a motion by Democrats to send the legislation back to committee. It will fail, but there will be a recorded vote followed by a vote on the debt limit legislation. So, okay. In short, they don't have it. This is, just so you have a real understanding of how incompetent MAGA is, how incompetent Republican politicians are. This is about the most simple thing government can do. It's one of the most simple things, agreeing to pay our bills. It doesn't have to be a giant production. Democrats do it every year, and it doesn't make headlines. Why is that? Not really a matter of negotiation, whether or not the United States can pay its bills. We're capable of it. We spent the money already. By the way, Trump spent an insane amount of money. We have to fulfill our obligations. It would only occur to MAGA psychopaths and the GOP, I suppose, in general, to toy with the fate of the world. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, truly, the world economy would be in serious trouble if the U.S. was suddenly a bum nation, a country that didn't pay its bills. The whole world would suffer. It would only occur to Republican politicians to toy with that for political gain. And that's what they're hoping to do. Let's make sure this accomplishes the opposite. Let's make sure that this clown show as it has become, continues to hurt the GOP because they've earned it. They're simply, at this point, they're simply stuck on the high dive. They talked a big game. They need to be either pushed off or allowed down the ladder. As in to say they need to either be voted out of office or they need to be allowed to quietly and politely resign because they don't know how to run a country. And at the end of the day, we need people doing these jobs at a minimum that understand what the job is, that understand how government works, that understands, the basics of running something. Republicans don't. They just don't. They're a bunch, as far as I've seen, they are a bunch of pampered kids. And they can't be trusted with anything serious. Make sure your community knows that. Republicans cannot be trusted with anything serious, least of all running the government. They're clowns. At best, they're clowns. Generally speaking, they're also criminals. Make sure your community is abundantly aware of that. And for God's sake, and I mean this with the utmost sincerity, for the sake of the world having an easier next decade, to make your life truly, genuinely easier for years to come, you have an opportunity at the end of 2024 to get rid of all of these bums. Do so. It's got to be the end of the Republicans because they are simply not, they're not a destructive habit that we can afford anymore. Let me poke in here. Well, by the way, thank you for joining me on this bonus stream. If you're enjoying it, give it a like. Lord knows I certainly appreciate picking up those algorithm boosts where and when I can. I got another thing here, and I think why not? Let's just record it. Well, there's some controversy over why Tucker Carlson was finally let go from Fox News. He was fired from Fox. Why was that? It wasn't the Nazi stuff. You know how Tucker Carlson he had a bunch of white nationalist talking points. It wasn't that on his show. He talked about the Great Replacement theory. It's literally something that Nazis talk about. It wasn't that. It wasn't the fact that one of his producers was found posting on a Nazi forum. It wasn't that. It wasn't the fact that he participated in a coup d'etat in the United States when he knowingly, as we discovered through his text, knowingly lied about the legitimacy of the U.S. election in 2020. That didn't get him fired because, Fox is scum. Rupert Murdoch is scum. He deserves to be in a prison cell. So does Tucker Carlson, and morality has nothing to do with their decision-making process. That guy has no morality whatsoever. Neither does Rupert Murdoch. Neither does anybody on Fox. They don't have morals. So why was he finally fired? Well, it wasn't because of morality. It was likely because either He became a liability, which seems likely, given that he in part just cost Fox the better part of $1 billion, $780 million. Or something else just happened. A bunch of his text messages came out. A bunch of his text messages were revealed, and there's multiple lawsuits going on here, which means there's very likely text messages that Fox is aware of now, like the leadership at Fox, that you and I are not yet aware of. Now, I saw something. I was watching the True North Eager Beaver podcast this morning, and I saw something brought up, and I'm not sure about it, but I'll bring it to your attention. Maybe it just wasn't the Fox people that were aware of it. And that was the comments Tucker Carlson made about his 14-year-old daughter a couple years back. Ooh. Wow, that is a... Okay, well, that'll work. Yeah. So somebody brought this up as a possible reason Tucker Carlson might have been fired. But I want to highlight this here. Fox knew about this. This is just like the Nazi stuff. So bear that in mind. You should still know what Tucker Carlson said about his daughter, though. And women in general. He described women as extremely primitive and basic. The Fox News anchor has invited anyone who disagrees with his views to come on his show. Mr. Carlson was hired by blah, 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 presented a yada, yada, yada. So just for context, he's been heard on these recordings defending child marriage and making sexual comments about underage girls. What underage girls? Well, let's go here. On 2 occasions, Mr. Carlson lambasts charges against Warren Jeffs, who is in jail for child rape. Now, this guy may be a child rapeist. He says, I'm just telling you that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and, whatting her. When the show host describes 14-year-old girls at Mr. Carlson's daughter's school sexually experimenting with each other, again, 14-year-old girls, kids, he says, if it weren't my daughter, I would love that scenario. That's what Tucker Carlson said. But I stress, I don't think it was that. And the reason I don't think it was that, the reason I don't think it was that, was because that came out in 2019. So Fox already knew that that's who Tucker Carlson was, They already knew that. So what was it? Well, it could be that apparently, and this is according to the rumor mill on Twitter, apparently he was bad-mouthing his bosses. And that was discovered in those texts. It could be, as well, that in this Abby Grossberg suit, there was a level of sexual harassment, or just harassment, and that'd be even sexual, a level of employee harassment that was unknown to the bosses, and therefore the liability went up. But I guess the point of all this is just to tell you, Tucker Carlson is scum. Don't let anybody launder his reputation. That is not someone who deserves to have their reputation laundered. In fact, you should say it loud and proud and often. Tucker Carlson is scum. He is a snotty rich kid who is now a middle-aged bigot. He is happy to sell out America in exchange for money. He's happy to lie about democracy. He's happy to make people in the United States not support democracy anymore. And he does all of this while talking about how he'd like to see his teenage daughter in sexual Congress. That's who Tucker Carlson is. And you should remind Fox watchers of that at every opportunity. So there's the Carlson update. Keep that in the MAGA minds, please. Off Time says Tucker being anti-war and talking about the COVID shots was a problem for Fox. I don't know about anti-war. He might have been pro-Putin, but he certainly wasn't anti-war. Tucker will bounce back and be better off. No. Fox was the biggest cable network, and I don't think Tucker has the charisma to maintain a to maintain like a Joe Rogan audience. Zix1326 says, running a company is completely different than running a country. Whenever I see a businessman touting his accomplishments, I look for somebody else for whom to vote. It's probably a good idea. Yeah. Well, we got one more thing for you here, and I think you're going to appreciate it. I think Sam Seder broke Steven Crowder. We're going to record this so I can upload it in a minute. So my theory is that Sam Seder broke Steven Crowder like a Kit Kat bar. In one of the most glorious moments I have seen on the internet, Steven Crowder, after literally ducking Sam Seder for years, was caught on his stream trying to pick on H3, whatever, Ethan from H3. I think it's Ethan Klein, who is not an avid debater. He was trying to pick on that guy, who was just a famous streamer. And what he got was a surprise guest appearance by, oh no, Sam Seder. And of course, Steven, being a coward, fled his own show. And it was, the internet laughed, I think, for about a month straight. The reaction videos to it are almost, at this point, a genre unto themselves. Good Lord, I'm a YouTube guy. Why haven't I done one? I'm going to go make up for lost time. But there have been further developments in the Crowder saga since then. He had a big falling out with Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and that whole crowd over at whatever brown shirt channel they've got. And now he's gotten divorced from his wife. Now, it turns out he got divorced from his wife back in 2021. And we're just apparently, or rather it started then, and we're just finding out about it now. What happened in 2021? Remember, one of the ways Steven Crowder ducked out of a debate with Sam Seder was by pretending his wife was ill. or rather, maybe it was blaming the illness of his wife. I'm not exactly sure of the details anymore. It's been a while, and other than being funny, it wasn't a major event in my life. It didn't, for example, cause a divorce. But that might have caused some stress on the marriage. And here's Sam Seder and the Majority Report crew from a couple months back discussing, I'm trying to be cool here, discussing the increased beef between Crowder and Candace Owens, and weighing in with their own thoughts. I thought we'd comment as well, given the new information that's come to light that Steven Crowder is in fact getting divorced.
So many different things here.
What do you want to do next? Candace Owens?
Yes.
Yes. Me too.
This is great. So look, I mean, we can sit here and speculate all day, as we have, many times. Like, what is the mental problem that that Steven Crowder has?
Or just like making observations like he really doesn't like trans people, but he's dressed in and says drag shows or grooming situations, but he's dressed in drag like quite a few times for his program.
Yeah, I mean, there's weird stuff that goes on with it. We don't know. And the other thing that we've noticed about Steven Crowder is that how like bizarrely terrified he was about even like the idea that somehow I would confront him. With that whole Ethan Klein, when he brought me on for his show, the first time that Crowder canceled, Ethan, who was far more adept at this stuff, and I think understands the psychology of someone like Crowder far better than I, said, he's afraid that we're bringing you on. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. How could he possibly, that can't possibly be true. And then, of course, when we actually did pretend that we were live and Crowder did actually show up at the debate, he admitted, because he was so flustered, that he was in fact monitoring our show to make sure that we didn't show up in the debate. I mean, which, if that was the case, kudos to him for having that set. But like, wouldn't you be like, you tried to ambush me. Guess what I did for the past week?
I prepared for it.
I prepared for it, and I'm ready for you, you idiot. And so now I'm going to take both of you and make fools out of both of you.
I mean, if you were an intellectual on the internet, that's what you'd do. If you weren't a fraud, that's what you would do. You'd prepare for a debate. It wouldn't matter, as a matter of fact, who showed up to the debate. Like, for example, Ethan was there at the debate, playing it on his show with his whole audience, right? Well, the appearance of Sam Seder doesn't take away Ethan's audience. So if you are Steven Crowder and you are who you said you were, if you were somebody that had a real understanding of these things, the thing to do would be to whip Sam Seder in front of two additional audiences, Sam Seder's and Ethan's. Ooh, boy, wouldn't that be something? Instead, he fled like a coward. I just want to make it crystal clear. What Sam is referring to is the fact that Ethan apparently was on the lookout for this and was actively monitoring the Majority Report for when Sam was there and not there. And he refused to go on until it appeared that Sam Seder was live on his show. But we found out, no, that was a recording that they snuck in. Because Ethan correctly guessed that Crowder was monitoring this whole thing. What a coward. Oh, this is great. But Sam brings up what happened immediately following Steven Crowder panicking and fleeing off his stream. So let's have a look at that.
But he was too afraid. He starts like he could see like his.
He was hoping it would never happen.
His chest contracts. I mean, and then he ends up in the hospital for chest surgery.
I hope his lungs are okay.
Yeah, but
God damn. God. Oh. I mean, if you debate somebody like Raphael Warnock, he'll take you to church. You debate Sam Seder, you're going to meet God. Good Lord. Oh. Sam will put you in the ground. You don't play with Sam Seder. Don't get that man's ire. Don't pretend like you know something. And make Sam Seder a part of the conversation, because that is the only person I'm aware of that whipped someone so hard in a debate that he put him in the hospital. That's genuinely impressive. Love some Sam Seder. And by the way, Emma Vigeland, I think this was just at that tail end of the time where the scamps from the Majority Report were still introducing her to scampery. I feel like a couple months later, even though she's been on the show for a long time now, but I feel like these days she's more natural around the scampery. But it's kind of adorable to watch her start to giggle along with the gang during this one.
So Crowder did this whole thing. We broke down the two most important elements of it. One, that it exposes how much money is sloshing around the right wing. And two, how Crowder inadvertently admitted that his entire perspective on conservative economics is just a lie. He doesn't really even believe it. And he really sees the reality that contracts and employment relationships can be coercive, without a doubt. He knows this. That's really the more important stuff. But it's not necessarily the best stuff. And the best stuff could be coming. Because on the Daily Wire, it's clear that Jeremy Boring and, equally as boring, Ben Shapiro, did not want to get too dirty in the muck with Shapiro, because they have to do the business stuff and they've got to make deals with other people. And Crowder looked pretty bad. Like, I don't know if I would ever do business with Steven Crowder. I mean, I will, because he can record me and I'll record him whenever we talk. But if I was like an executive worried about this stuff, I don't think I would ever speak frankly to Crowder ever again. I would be worried about getting on the phone with him, recording like that.
If you're an internet lefty, Sam Seder is the person to model yourself after. It's that simple. Never, ever turn down an opportunity to clash with these right-wing psychopaths. Just don't. Their ideology is too poisonous. Every opportunity we have to refute them and show what clowns they are, we should take. And look, let me be merciful here. I mean, this guy's a blinker. There we go. And I could keep going with this, but the point is, then Candace Owens goes on. Then Candace Owens goes on to imply that Steven Crowder is maybe not living in a Christian manner. This guy that cross-dresses frequently on his show and is a Republican, so is therefore very likely to be lying about their personal life. You get it. I don't really care about that. I mostly just wanted to make fun of the fact that, in my belief, Sam Seder put Steven Crowder in the hospital by debating him. Truly a champion of our era. Why has Steven Crowder gotten divorced? I don't actually know or care. But it couldn't have helped that Sam Seder whipped him so hard that he had to go to the hospital, that he looked like a fool in front of his father and his wife and the whole world. Couldn't have helped that Steven Crowder, in a desperate attempt to avoid Sam Seder, used his wife like a human shield. I'm sure it couldn't have helped that there were rumors out there that this guy, who was avidly bigoted against homosexuals, may have engaged in such activity himself. Couldn't have helped. But whatever it is, I just want to say, and look, politics is one thing, but I just want to say, personally, divorce is a hard thing. It is. And I'm glad Steven Crowder's going through it. Because fuck him, that's why. Send Mrs. Crowder some flowers. I hear she's single now. Sam Seder, says Leon Chevalier, has been loving his chowder story these last few days. Yeah. Oh my God, it's been amazing. Ooh. Off Time says Oliver Stone 2017 documentary on Ukraine and the events that took place in 2014. I would like to look at that. LOL at Off Time, Ukraine on Fire is a propaganda film withdrawn by Igor Lapotonic and premiered at the 2016 Good Lord Tormina Film Fest. Interesting. Yeah. Listen, Off Time, I really want you to understand something, because you said two things right now that made me nervous that you're being lied to. Russia invaded a sovereign country. In Crimea, they invaded Ukraine, and again, because Crimea is part of Ukraine. It's like Florida. Imagine for a moment if, I don't know, France invaded Florida and just took it over and said, no. We've only taken over Florida. We're not taking over the United States. And then in the second invasion, Putin just decided to go for the gold. Countries are not allowed to do that. I don't care what else you think. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? I know why. I have a long list of reasons why. I will explain them to you in a moment. But before I do, I want to make it crystal clear. It doesn't matter. It does not matter why. They're not allowed to do that. We can have all the beef we want with another country. We're not allowed to invade. Russia has military bases in Crimea. Wasn't an invasion. Crimea doesn't belong to Russia. It's not their territory. You cannot take over territory by force. You're not allowed to do that. That is called imperialism. We don't allow that in the 21st century, or at least we're not supposed to. So I will explain to you now, because you've asked. I'm going to give you the information, but you need to understand, it doesn't matter what their excuse was. The action they did is simply not permitted in the 21st century. It's not supposed to be. After World War II, we said enough is enough. We don't redefine borders with guns anymore. We just don't do that because that's savagery. We don't allow it. Ask yourself sincerely, why are you on Russia's side? And I'm not trying to attack you. I mean, I want a genuine answer from you. Why do you want to be on Russia's side? Because, let's be honest, you have to come into this wanting to support Russia in order to take their side. Here's why. I will explain to you strategically, first of all, why they would want to take Ukraine. The capital of Russia is in the far east, right? The far west of the country. See, your old pal Jake's got his flaws. Because of that, their westernmost border is somewhat dangerous for them. If their westernmost border is a NATO country, then NATO only has to go a very short distance to reach the nerve center of Russia. They don't have to fight through a whole wasteland of a country. No, they're right there. So strategically, that's why. In terms of Vladimir Putin himself, he's rather openly expressed the fact that he wants to return to the Soviet era. And not in the sense of pretending to be communist. No, in terms of having an empire. Remember, Putin was a KGB guy back in the day. That never really left, as far as we can tell. So he has already installed a puppet dictator in Belarus. Lukashenko, am I saying that right? Whatever. The guy running Belarus right now did not receive the popular support for the office. Plain and simple. There have been mass protests against this guy. He is a puppet of Putin. The president before Zelensky appeared to be basically the same thing. When Zelensky came to power, Putin wasn't having it because Zelensky had a very pro-Western view. He had a very pro-America view. So do most. Off-time, you're simply wrong. We'll get back to that. Off-time says Zelensky is also a dictator. Let's set aside whether Zelensky is a dictator. Remember, it does not matter. You literally cannot redefine your borders by force. I don't care how much you don't like Zelensky. I don't care how much Putin doesn't like Zelensky. It doesn't matter. Now, I ask you again, why are you looking? You say Zelensky is also a dictator, implying that you understand Putin is a dictator. Ask yourself, why do you want to support Putin? Answer me now if you're feeling brave. Why do you want to support Putin? Not why do you support Putin? Not what are the excuses that you've clung on to, but why do you desire to support him? Where did you first hear this information that made you want to be on the side of Putin? Because right now, I've seen you toss spaghetti at the wall, like I tend to see often with this particular line of nonsense. And I'm sorry, but it's nonsense you've fallen for. You've been lied to, in other words. I see you toss spaghetti at the wall. It's in your head to want to support Russia. Why? Why do you want to? What would our nation do in his situation? Are you talking about Putin? Well, it depends on who's controlling us. It really does. But by and large, our nation would not invade. Now, if we were attacked first, like in 2001, we might use that as an excuse to invade, like we did with Iraq. But I think we've learned we were wrong. And another thing we did after that whole mess was leave. We left. It was still wrong of us. But again, I ask you, why, off time, why do you want to support Putin? Answer that question, truly, for yourself, if for no other reason. Why do you desire to support Putin? Do you just like the guy? Do you like his vibe? Does it start there? Because you're coming into this looking for an excuse to support this guy. And I'd rather deal with reality, like the real thing that's making you have this kind of wild opinion. Because you're talking about supporting a guy that invaded another country to expand his own country's borders. You understand that? To empire build at the barrel of a gun. Something we said as a species we were going to stop doing after World War II. And we did that for a reason. Because our level of technology at that point became such that we realized we can wreck the world by fighting over it. We can pull this planet apart by trying to grab chunks of it for ourselves. And so we do not establish our borders with violence anymore. We just don't do that. Why are you finding yourself in a position where you're looking for an excuse to support the guy that is. To your earlier question, in case I didn't answer it, no, Zelensky is not a dictator. He's certainly a wartime president. He is by no definition a dictator. Why does Putin want to invade Ukraine and take it over? As I said, to sum it up, so you know for the future going forward, Putin wants to invade, number one, so that the capital of his country is more secure, and number two, so that he has a legacy of uniting the old Soviet states again. That's what he's trying to do. He does not have the right, legally, morally, or ethically, to do so. And one of his most potent tools that I want to warn you about off time, one of his most potent tools is propaganda. He tends to reach out to those of us who will react strongly to propaganda, who have perhaps already been introduced to American propaganda. And he tries, by the way, left and right, truly. And he uses this to make us act irrationally and abandon our morals and support him and fight each other. Off Time says Ukraine appears to have lost the war. I don't know by what possible metric you're judging. Let's pause this. This is actually wonderful. This is very useful. I'd like folks to see this in real time. Off Time says Ukraine appears to have lost the war, starting with that. No. You can look at and folks in the comments, don't ask Off Time questions for a moment. I'd like to talk with him directly. So starting with Ukraine appears to have lost the war. No. The gains made by Russia have been hard fought. They've lost just way too many troops. And they haven't been much, to be honest. Then Off Time says, our State Department uses propaganda just as much. And again, I want to remind people, don't engage with Off Time right now. I want to. I'm going to be selfish here. Our State Department uses propaganda just as much, says Off Time. Why, again, are you using this whataboutism? Yeah, our State Department does use propaganda. It's true. Why are you listening to Russian propaganda? That's the question. Does the fact that our State Department uses propaganda for the U.S., does that make it okay for you to listen to Russian propaganda? Does that make the Russian propaganda any more true? Again, I ask you the question, why do you desire to support Russia? Please tell me this. I mean, honestly, Off Time in the comments. Oh, no. Yeah, you got hit by the mods. Well, the last thing you said was the first victim of the war is truth, says Off Time. I notice that I asked you multiple times to explain where your desire to support Vladimir Putin comes from. And you didn't answer. And to me, the questions Off Time that you weren't willing to answer are very telling. And it doesn't look like you're going to be able to answer them here. But I think you should go home and try to answer them for yourself. Why is it that you found yourself in a position where you kept using whataboutism? You kept trying to distract from difficult questions. I think you know you've been misled. And I think some soul searching is due for you, Off Time. before you go on supporting an invasion that is killing people. And folks, look, I wasn't really doing that for off time's benefit. Although I hope, hey, if you're out there listening still, I hope you did enjoy that. I hope you gained something from that. But I'm doing that for your benefit. When you are talking to someone like this, take control of the conversation and constantly push it towards reality. And when people try to run away, like you saw happening again and again and again, oh, this isn't going well for me, I'm going to go down this path. Oh, that's not going well, I'm going to go down this path. You can still go down those paths, but stop before you do and make your introduction to the next thought the completion of the previous thought. Leon Chevalier, great advice on the delay, but I will say I have a meeting that I'm going to be attending in 24 minutes that I have done no preparation for, so I'm going to go do that. Off time, I hope you'll join us again in a future stream. I know we were at odds, but I definitely enjoyed a little bit of back and forth here. One hopes soon I will be able to take calls. Leon Chevalier, thank you for your work moderating. Mars Falcon Zix, thank you for joining. Y'all are the best. I'll see you at 9 p.m. Eastern for the regular stream. This has... Oh, by the way, if you enjoyed the stream, give it a like. Lord knows that helps. Oh. And subscribe if you haven't. This has been WYCD Wicket. That stands for What You Can Do. I am Jake.